Justin, it's a delight to be with you. And I absolutely adore the fact that I'm going to get to sort of interview you to showcase your amazing work on this book coming out, The Psalter of the Birds, which is a most unique offering from you. And you have a uniquely experienced and qualified, and to my mind, what is most exciting, well-read background. I mean, not just that you do the experiential, that you have the experience leading communities, but that you are so well read. I love this. So just the title gets me excited. The Psalter, Psalter of the birds. I love your deep ties with nature that go back for so long. That resonates with me too. So I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about why or how you came to the Psalter of the Birds, how you got the idea to create this book, what is it, and also when does it come out?
Well, thanks, Carmen. It's great to be here with you. I guess what happened was it was in all of that studying you were talking about. I wanted to read the life of Anthony, the Desert Father, and the book that it came in had two texts in it. So they're both by Athanasius. Athanasius wrote the life of Anthony, but he also wrote this book. It wasn't a book, it was a letter, his letter to Marcellinus. And in it, he talks about psalmody and the practice of chanting the Psalms and why it is a spiritual practice for him and for his community. And he just captivated me with the beauty of it. This idea that when we chant, the different parts of our soul become into harmony with each other. He compares, the different parts of our soul to the cymbals and the heartstrings, and talks about how we, through the music, come into a unity of soul and into ourselves. And that interior song also aligns with the angel song, the song of the angels, which sort of orchestrate the heavens and give order to the universe. And so I was just captivated by that. And I thought, well, I should probably start chanting the Psalms now that I know about this. So I did. I started chanting the Psalms, and I got all the way through the traditional biblical Psalter. And then I realized I had all of this wonderful Celtic poetry that I loved. And I'd heard I was talking to somebody about chanting, and there's a line that you hear sometimes chanting teachers say, which is, you can chant anything from the scriptures to the phone book. You can chant the phone book if you want. It doesn't matter how it's written. I thought, wow, that's cool, because there's all these texts that I love. That means I could just chant them. And so that's how it started. I started taking all this Celtic poetry, medieval Celtic poetry, translated into English, and I just started chanting it with me and a couple of friends. And we started to like the process so much, we thought, well, you know what, let's just turn it into a book.
I just love the fact that it started with this tug inside you, and before you knew it, you were chanting with a couple of your friends. So it like immediately made this kind of community, right? I mean, you're not chanting alone. And I also love how you talk about how the breath work aspect of it is really transformational, if I'm hearing you right, for you and also for others who chant. And I like the idea of chanting the phone book. I must say, I've read your Psalter of the Birds, and these works are even better than the phone book. Let me just much better than the phone book. So what do you hope for people who get this book into their hands, this gorgeous book to me, it's like a treasure chest that you have put together lovingly. What do you hope people get from it, and how do you hope they engage with it?
So that's a big question. I like to weave together a bunch of different things all at once, as you may have noticed.
I have noticed.
And so it's got a few different intended purposes and hopes with it. I guess the primary one is what we had just talked about with Athanasius' teaching of harmonizing the soul. And so my hope is that people will be able to do that, and be able to do that. I mean, you can do it with the biblical Psalms, and I highly recommend that, and I still do. But I think it's nice to have some diversity there and everything as well, to bring in some different aspects. And so there's an aspect of just personal healing, which I hope it touches people, and it helps to bring harmony to their hearts. I also hope for the contemporary Celtic Christian community, which has been going strong for about a couple centuries since it started, and with the sort of Irish literary revival and all that. One of the things that I've noticed is that there's so many beautiful things in the contemporary Celtic Christian tradition, but there's also a bit of a lack of engagement with a lot of the primary texts. A lot of people just don't know that they exist. And so part of my hope with the Psalter of the Birds is to bring those into an accessible way to people. Because right now, a lot of the texts that are in there, they're out there in translations, but you have to buy academic books and you got to spend $80 for a book that's got two poems in it or whatever. And so my hope is that it will make the sort of primary text of the Celtic tradition available to general people who want to bring it into their spirituality and incorporate it into their lives as well.
I love that you brought out that point, that you're making them more accessible, these treasures, so they don't have to go buy the $80 academic book that has 2 poems in it. And you're also putting them in a kind of a frame of community, which they would have had to begin with. So I love that. You're actually sort of rehousing them, is how it feels to me. You're making like this space for them to be alive again. I've always said you remind me of John O'Donohue. So this is, I think, a great gift, because Celtic spirituality is so deep and rich and also so everyday. So of the works that you have assembled here and worked with, do you have, I know this is hard to say and you don't want to offend any of your babies, but do you have one that sticks out? I won't say a favorite, but do you have one that you find yourself returning to chant often, or just to read, or one that stands out?
Well, so I put the Ever New Tongue in there, and the Ever New Tongue is one of my favorites.
Explain about it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful combination of story, deep theology and metaphysics, and poetry. It's all mixed together in this wonderfully medieval Celtic way. It's not originally written as a poem, so I had to kind of arrange it to fit the structure of the rest of the text. It was a prose work originally, but it's probably got to be my favorite. I came to it a little later in my study just because there's so many texts I hadn't gotten around to it yet. I didn't know what it was, and I discovered it almost a year ago to the day, basically, right around this time last year. And I had spent 3 days in the bush reading Eriugena, who's one of my favorites. And then after I got back, I started into this Ever New Tongue, and I realized it has so much in common, but it tells it in this sort of poetic story-like way, which Eriugena doesn't do. He's very much a dense philosopher. And so I just really fell in love with it. It's probably my favorite text in there in terms of like what it says and what the content is in it. In terms of actually chanting, though, I think a lot of the Welsh stuff I really, really like. Some of the sort of late medieval Welsh stuff, and the stuff is attributed to Taliesin in particular. I find that chanting it, there's something, I don't know, the combination of they'll blend together. It'll be like one stanza of nature, spirituality, and trees, and all the stuff, the beautiful verdancy and all that they name, and then it'll switch over into sort of like proverbs of life and just like alternate back and forth. And there's something about that back and forth motion when I'm chanting that feels really spiritually grounding. It's almost like I can't get attached to one or the other, like we were talking about in our other talk.
Yeah. So can you give us an example from one of them? Because I love the fact my husband has Welsh ancestors in his family, and I've always loved just Wales and everything about it. The countryside, everything. So can you give us an example of how you're talking about the way it toggles between, and that's very grounding for you?
Yeah, I'm sure I could. It would give me, I've got it here. It wouldn't take me too long to find it.
Yeah.
Let's see. So like I've given it the title "Brightly Shines the Treetops." It's from Llywelyn Hen in the Red Book of Hergest, and I'm sure I'm not doing justice to the Welsh names. But this one starts off: "Brightly shines the ash treetops. They are so tall and white. When they grow on the hills of the deep woods, the unhurried heart complains of longing. Brightly shines the top of the cliff at the long hour of midnight. Every ingenious person will be honored. The fair one will give them sleep in their pain. Brightly shines the willow treetops, and the fish are playful in the lake. The wind whistles over the tops of the branches. Nature is superior to learning."
And that's beautiful. I see what you mean. The way it goes, it's almost like calling. It's like a dialogue between the two notions, and it becomes seamless, doesn't it? It really is very. It reminds me of Hildegard too, and I loved how you talked about the verdancy. That sacred greenness is definitely in that, like the tops of the willows. Okay, that's just gorgeous. And to chant that, I mean, I'm gone. That's absolutely wonderful. So, could you also tell us a little bit, because I can't help but see your work, Justin, with this book, The Psalter of the Birds. I know it's a lot of work you did on your own and also out in the bush with different ancient, dead, but very alive to you philosophers, making sense of them for all of us. But I see it all within the community of like the New Eden ministry. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and what your hopes for it are, or your experience of it is, and how I know how special it is because I've had the joy of having different sorts of dialogues with you all. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you started it, or just anything you want to tell us about this wonderful community?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so the virtual chapel community is really special to me, and it's become a lot more than I actually thought it would in the beginning. I was a pastor at a small country church around the area here. I was a seminary student with a placement. I never finished seminary, but I had a church for a couple of years, almost 2 years. And when I had to leave ministry for various reasons, just my life wasn't working out. I live in the middle of nowhere, and I was having to travel to. It was an hour and a half to get to work each way, and it was just too much. But I decided, to try and do something online, because that takes away the burden of the fact that I live in the middle of nowhere. And it took off. I took my old sermons and I made them into blog posts, and I started a Facebook group, and I thought, well, we'll see who comes and we'll see what happens. I have no idea what I'm doing. But the community grew, and we were well positioned right before COVID hit, because we started before COVID. And so when it came about and everybody was trying to scramble, how do we do this online community? How do we use all the tech? We had it all set up already. And so we were able to sort of invite people in. And then throughout COVID, we were able to reach a lot of people who were stuck at home. And now it's grown into quite a community, and we keep going, even though the quarantines have ended. And we meet 2 to 3 or 4 times a week on Zoom. And we meet for silence, and we meet for discussion. And sometimes we chant things from Psalter of the Birds. Mm. And it's a very impactful. I know everyone who comes regularly feels like it's a community they never were able to find anywhere else. And I very much feel like it's a gift in my life to be able to meet with all kinds of compassionate and intelligent and mystically minded people.
I love that. Compassionate, intelligent, and mystically minded people. That sums up New Eden to me, this virtual, very compassionate community. And what I also love about it, that you'll probably not mention because you're self-effacing in a beautiful way, is that I love the humor also. It's a very gentle, kind humor. So one of the things, with the internet is we often are bombarded by doom scrolling types of things. And I always know that if there's a post by Justin, that it's going to be either something about Regina that I'm going to puzzle over and enjoy, or it will be some wise quote from someone, or something wise that you've written where you synthesize a lot of the things that you've experienced and also read and written. Or it will be a meme that will make me burst out laughing. So that is much appreciated. That kind of kind, gentle humor that's also kind of punny. I must tell you, I'm there for puns. So it's really a wonderful, wonderful group. And I've never heard you actually describe how you started it, but I think it's really, you can tell it means so much to so many. And I like the fact that you described it as a gift to you, because it's very much other people feel, and even me, where I am, getting to dip in it feels like a gift to everyone, to me. It's funny how it feels like a gift to you, and that feeling of it's being a gift is what everybody feels. So Justin, that's beautiful. So is there anything about the Psalter of the birds that you would like to chant for us or give us a taste of? Can you think of something we could do here for that?
Well, I was kind of hoping that we'd be able to do some chanting together. I know you were so kind and generous as to contribute a translation, so of Caedmon's hymn, which is Anglo-Saxon, and a wonderful short little piece. And I'm so grateful that you added it into the collection in Psalter of the Birds. So I was wondering if maybe you would want to chant it in Old English, and then I could chant it in your modern English translation. Would you be up for that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a great. Oh, I'd love that because I've not heard you chant. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this is Caedmon's hymn from the 8th century or so, all about the beauty of nature. Hildegard would love it, don't you think? I
I
think
think
she
so.
would.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Nushulon heriayen, nushulon heriayen, nushulon heriayen, nushulon heriayen, heaven reaches wired. May a toda smash day on dismoja thunk. Where coolder fader, swahe wonder je was. Etche drishten oron stalde. Hey, Addership, Earth and Barnum, Heaven to Rofa, Halik Shipund, Thummid and Yardmon, Kernis Werde, Etche drishten after Teoda, Viram Folden. Freya Almishtish, Freya Almishtish, Freya Almishtish. I love that.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you.
And I can't wait to hear you sing, till you chant it.
Yeah, my style is a little different than yours. It's a little more like reading, but
That's cool. That's cool.
you're
Bring
hard
it on. I can't wait.
Now we praise heaven's keeper, the measurer's might and wise mindfulness, the work of our ancestor and present guide, who created the beginning of each wonder, who first shaped heaven as a roof for all the children of the earth. Then holy creator, humanity's helper and present guide, made the middle world the solid ground for everyone. For these gifts we praise the kind beloved.
That is beautiful. Justin, that is beautiful. That's going to resonate in me the whole rest of the day. I mean, that is truly beautiful. Thank you for sharing it. It almost renders me speechless, but I think I'm supposed to move us to the next point, aren't I? we, we should have thought about how we have to do something functional after that. Thank you, Justin, so much for this conversation. I can't even begin to tell you how grateful I am to you for our friendship and just for your really good work in the world. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Carmen. I very much enjoyed chatting with you again, and I very much enjoy your friendship as well. And we'll see you in the comments.
Okay, we'll see you in the comments. See you, Justin.
Bye.